Hello, Mr. Bergman. I received your question here. You want to use Cramer rule to solve a system of linear equations. As I mentioned in an earlier email, you may want to just stop by my office and we talk about this some. Now, you're asking me about the hardest problems of this type. Now, to work this one assumes that you know some earlier things, which I'm not exactly sure where you're at on this material. Do you understand everything up to this point? We're starting at the end here, not the beginning. Anyway, I'll try to solve this for x. These are lengthy problems, and it'll be very similar for y and z. And so how do we solve for x? Well, x, y, and z, for that matter, will be the quotient of two 3 by 3 determinants. How do you determine what's in these three determinants? Well, if you look at the numbers here, I've already started it, they're just the coefficients of x, y, and z. When you have it already in this arrangement, so we have the variables on one side, constant on the other, everything lined up, if you just write down the coefficients, 1, 8, and negative 1, 1, negative 1, and 4, that's what I have here, just the coefficients of x first, coefficients of y, and then the coefficients of z. Well, I'm solving for x. So this first column here, I'll call it the x column. Okay. The other two columns, they just match what's in the denominator. If you look, same two columns in the denominator and numerator, but I'm solving for x. So in the first column, what you place is these constants here that's on the right side. So the 0, negative 49, and negative 35. So I'll put the 0 here. Negative 49, it's a little hard to write this small, and a negative 35. Now it's a matter, after you set it up, it's a matter of evaluating these two 3 by 3 determinants, which is a big job. You get quicker with practice. Now if I was solving for y, I would have put the constants in the middle column. If I was solving for z, I'd put these numbers here, these three numbers, in the right column, in the z column. The other two columns would match the denominator. And so now we got to break this into, there are different ways to work from here, but you want to break this into smaller determinants, I guess, if I go along with the book. And so I'm going to copy down the top row of numbers, and each of them will be times a 2 by 2 determinant. Okay, so I copy down this 1, 1, and 1. Okay, and I'm going to put in a 2 by 2 determinant in each of these. The rule is you change the sign of the middle one. So that was a positive 1, so I'm going to make that a minus. And then this last one just maintains its sign, it's plus. So different ways to do this, but this way I consistently do it. So I copy down the top row, change the sign of the middle one. And this one's already positive, so I keep it plus. Now this first one here, it's in this left column and top row. The four numbers left are what go in this determinant here. And so that would be a negative 1, 1, 4, negative 1. Again, where did I get those four numbers? Well, this one here is in this column, this row. These are the four numbers left. And you do this over again. This middle one came from this top row and middle column. So top row and middle column, you'd be left with these two numbers and these two numbers. That's what goes in this box here. So that'd be an 8, negative 1, 1, and a negative 1. And finally, let's see this one here. Corresponding to that fellow, it's still in top row, but the right column. So I'd write down these four numbers. 8, negative 1, negative 1, 4. I need to similarly do the same thing in the numerator. It's getting a little bit lengthy here, the time. So I'll go ahead and maybe I'll work out the denominator, and the numerator will work out similarly. If I start the numerator, it would be 0 times a 2 by 2 determinant 1 times a 2 by 2 determinant, and another 1 times a 2 by 2 determinant. And I'm getting those numbers top row here, 0, 1, 1. Always change the sign of the middle one, and I'll keep the sign of this last one. Now this part will be real easy. I mean, it's just 0. You don't even have to continue with it, but you have to put the 4 numbers here and the 4 numbers here. Okay, so I'll work on the denominator here. So in the denominator, it's going to be 1 times the value of this determinant and just cross multiply. So it's this diagonal's product, which would be a positive 1, minus this diagonal, which would be minus 4. So it's 1 times 1 minus 4, and minus 1. Then I'll need to do the same thing. This diagonal is negative 8 minus a negative 1. So negative 8 minus a negative 1. It's supposed to be minus a negative 1 here. Plus 1. And this, let's see, this diagonal will be 32. That'd be, product would be 1, so it'd be 32 minus 1. And similarly, you'd work out the numerator. It's already over 6 minutes on this video. And so if I continue with the denominator here, say it'd be 1 times negative 3 minus 1 times, let's see, what was that? That was, what was this? I'm trying to remember. The product was negative 8 minus 1, negative 1, so it'd be negative 8 plus 1. That'd be negative 7 there. And I can see this is what 1 times 31. Let's see, can I move this up? I'm running out of room here. And so in the denominator I have negative 3 plus 7 plus 31, which, so that would be 35 is what I'm getting for the denominator. I'd have to repeat this for the numerator, and this is just one variable. So these do take quite a bit of time, quite a bit of paper. I'm at almost 8-minute video, so I'm going to stop here. You can, if you can, we talked about you stopping by my office when you're having trouble. This might be a good place for that.